Hello guys, Kiki Kannon here with Kannon Studios and welcome to another video. And in today's video, I go over 3D modeling some stamping textured pieces for using on clay. And I did this specific thing for working on my Mercy costume. I had since put it on hold. I hope to eventually get back to it. So I hope this helps you guys maybe with a project that you're working on. And I have a lot more cosplay oriented videos coming along the way now that I'm able to make some time for YouTube again. So I hope you're glad to have me back. And please feel free to subscribe and like this video if it was helpful. And let me know in the comments if there's anything that you are looking for specifically or any tutorials you would like me to do. So thank you guys, I really appreciate it. And let's get started. Alright, so I'm going to start by working in Blender, and I'm just going to go ahead and delete everything that I don't really need and just start from scratch. So I'm going to add an object here to start with, and I'm just going to go ahead and start with a cone. And basically the idea is that we're going to kind of detail this however you want, or the cone, but I found that the clay doesn't really do well with anything that's too deep. So I'm going to scale the Z down and flatten it out here. And then we're just going to go ahead and go into sculpting mode. And just to give you guys an idea, I mean, you guys can texture this however you want to, but if you want to add different textures and things, you can. And I always just say just to kind of experiment with the different options. This is just the draw pen, and you can do it to where it's negative or positive, meaning the lines will either come out or go in concave. And it already has a mirror mode on. If you don't want it to mirror, you can turn this off. And feel free to just kind of experiment if you want with the different strengths, sizes, and whatever you kind of want to do, depending on what your overall goal is for the different tools you want to create. And after you kind of decided on your shape and whatever you're going to texture your tool as, so what we're going to do next is boolean this into the cylinder that we're going to make to create the tool. And I didn't really do mine super fancy. I just made them really tiny just to save on resin. If you're going to create a bunch of them and use them a lot, you could maybe get more fancy with how you make yours and maybe lay some handles if you really want to get into that. There's so many different things you could do. I'm just kind of opening the door to possibilities with this. So you can quickly access the boolean on the side view if you go into edit, and we're just going to boolean the difference, and that way you have the negative, which is kind of how I created all the different tools. And if you want to get fancy, you can go in the edit mode and take the edge, and you can create a bevel by doing option B and rounding it out if you want. You can also feel free to add text if you wanted to label them for reference. And I'm just going to pick something like L1, so if you wanted to do like a series that was L1, 2, 3, 4, so you could kind of remember which was which tool. That could also be helpful. It's not something I did, but I could see the use for it if you're going to be using them regularly. So I want to turn these into a mesh, and then I went ahead and went into edit mode and I extruded them so they weren't flat planes. So you could either have the letters sticking out, or you could also boolean them in like we did with the other shape before and make them inset into the top of it. So whichever you prefer, either one will work. So here's an example of all the different tools I did just to show you guys different things that I did in Blender. And I did just kind of a variety of scale shapes since my focus was primarily to create a scaling texture. So they're more kind of as stamps, but you could also create a variety of different sculpting tools and not just stamp-like tools. So I just kind of built up and kind of created a design and then use my regular sculpting tools to kind of add or enhance around what I was doing. This just kind of helped me lay it out. So it's something that you could try to experiment with and do. It's how I ended up creating my scales for my Mercy costume, which I did finish. So I think it's definitely helpful for creating your tools, and it's pretty inexpensive, and it doesn't really take too long to just mess around in Blender, and it might be useful for creating just different textures. And again, you don't have to do stamps like this. There's just a wide possibilities of creating different things that aren't necessarily stamps. You could do something much bigger and flatter and kind of create a giant stamp if you wanted. And so you kind of get the idea. So here is a part of the clay piece I made for my Mercy costume, and I did use the tools to kind of enhance or add more detailing to my scales. So this is just one example of how you can use your tools if you feel like it's something that's going to work for a project that you want to do. And then after I was done creating all of my pieces, I did mold them and I went ahead and cast them out of silicone. I do also have a video where I talk about an intro to silicone if you're interested. I don't know how many more videos I'll do. It depends on how many interest people really have in silicone. Personally, one of my favorite materials to work with. And I just kind of layered it up in thin layers to kind of save on it. And also I didn't really want it to be thick since it will be kind of acting as the skin for Mercy. So then I was able to peel the silicone out after it was done curing in nice thin layers. And I want to add it to a bodysuit, which is the next step that I need to do. I have since airbrushed it. I'm still kind of deciding on my color palette, if this is the colors that I want to stick with or not. Since I am focusing on an original design, I tend to second guess some of my color choices a little bit more than I probably should. And I've been a bit busy, so I haven't quite been able to work on this costume as much as I'd like, since it's just kind of a side passion project. It's really hard to find the time and money to finish it, but my goal is to kind of finish it this year, hopefully. So here is basically where I am with these pieces, and you can see that I airbrushed them and added more color. So I'm excited to see the progression of this costume. And if you want more updates on this costume specifically, feel free to subscribe. I'll be posting some work on this project as well as some other projects that I am working on.